Hi everyone. Today we'll cover the chain modules functionality. So this is an amazing functionality released by the Adobe team, and using this particular chain modules functionality, you can actually design your scenario in a much better way, in a much cleaner way. Okay, so think about this particular situation where you are planning to design a very complicated scenario with a lot of modules, right? And maybe hundreds of modules, right? That's not going to be a very good design, and it might be very difficult to read that kind of scenario, and maybe it would be really difficult to debug the scenario as well, right? In case of any errors, you might find it really difficult to debug those kind of scenarios, right? So using this chain modules functionality, you can call multiple scenarios from your parent scenario. You can call multiple scenarios, right? So basically you split your processing logic into multiple scenarios, right? And then you call the child scenario from your parent scenario. Okay, you call the individual scenarios using the parent scenario. Okay, um, so that will be a much better design rather than incorporating all the modules in one particular scenario, and then it will be really a maintenance nightmare, and it would be really difficult for another developer to come in and just go through the scenario and then debug the scenario, right? So please consider using chain modules functionality whenever you design any complicated integration, let's say. Okay, so let's see how it works. So this is a parent scenario. So let's add a module. Choose module, tools. Okay, tools, set multiple variables. Let's add var test. Okay, so this is a dummy variable. So let's click on OK there, and then let's try to call another scenario, a child scenario, basically, right? So let's add the chain module here. You have to search for chain here, okay, and then click on chain, okay, and then there are two actions here: call a child scenario, return response to parent. So we are interested in calling a child scenario, so let's click on call a child scenario, okay, and then let's add the child scenario here. So let's click on add here, and then let's say child scenario. Let's name it child scenario. Here you can see that they are expecting input data structure. So input data structure is nothing but the input message that the child scenario is expecting, right? So I have an input JSON message, let's say. So this is nothing but the project details. You have the project ID, name, and description. So this is what the child scenario is expecting in this case, right? So let's assume that this is what the child scenario is expecting. Okay, so let's click on add here, and let's click on generator here. Okay, and let's click on control V, and let's click on save. Okay, and the data structure is created. So let's name it to input DS, right? And let's click on save here. Okay, and now let's click on okay. Now we also need to add the output data structure. Okay, so output data structure is nothing but the output data structure of the child scenario, right? Whatever the child scenario will send back to the parent scenario. Okay, whatever the message or the response that the parent scenario is expecting. So that's what it is, right? So let's click on add here. So in our case, let's name it like output uh, DS. Okay, and let's try to click on generator, and let's say we have this particular output data structure. So it's nothing but status equal to success. So this is what the parent is expecting. This is what the parent scenario is expecting. Okay, click on save here, and then we're getting an error. What is this? So just because we have an extra comma here, let's just remove the comma. Let's save it here. Let's click on save. Okay, let's click on save here. Okay, so now you can see that the child scenario is configured. So let's also try to map the project ID. Let's use some default values 123 as of now. So let's say the name of the project is test whipin. Okay, description test DES, right? Let's say let's click on OK there. Okay, so we have mapped it. Okay, now let's try to open the child scenario. How will you open it? Just click on browse. Okay, now let's see what happened in the child scenario, right? When we configured that child scenario, let's see what really happened in there. So let's wait for it to open, and you can see that it automatically created two modules, right? Chain receive data from parent, chain return response to parent. So this module will actually receive data from the parent scenario, right? And what is the data it will receive from the parent scenario? This one, right? It will receive data in this particular format, right? That's what we have configured, right? So then after receiving the response, ideally there should be some processing logic. Let's say let's add another module here just for the purpose of this demo. Let's add a router. So this we can add the processing logic here. Whatever the logic of the scenario is, we can add it here, and then once everything is done, then we send the response back to the parent scenario, right? What is the response that the parent scenario is expecting? Success, right? The status should be set to success, right? Okay, so that's what the parent is expecting, right? So this is a simple, you know s- uh, parent child's relationship that we have developed here. Okay, this is a simple design that we have developed, but it can be way more complicated. You can call multiple child scenarios. We can cover that in a different session, but as of now, let's try to understand the basics. Okay, so let's try to close this. Let's try to click on OK here. Let's try to save it. So once we get the response from the parent, from the child here, we can also add our own processing logic. Okay, so we can, you know, uh, add our own processing logic here, right? That can be done as well, right? So let's try to test it out. Let's see how it works, and then, you know, let's see what we can do here. Let's try to run it. Okay, you can see that it is running. Okay, and then, you know we got a success message, and then let's try to also add some modules here. Choose module, let's say tools, let's add a dummy variable. Let's see what happens here. Set multiple variables. Okay, let's say var um, response, right? What is the response? We can map it from here, the status field, right? That is our response, right? Let's say, and let's click on OK there. Okay, so now let's try to run it once again. So let's see what happens. So it will call the child scenario. Child scenario will get there, will give us this response of success, and then but these modules will be executed, and you can see that we have the response of success here, right? So you can do your processing logic here. You can add your own modules here and complete your processing logic. We're not going to get into that, but we are just trying to understand the flow of the parent-child um, relationship, right? So then let's try to go and check the child scenario. Okay, let's see what happened in the child scenario here. Okay, and see what happened there. Okay, so let's open the child scenario and let's see how it ran. Okay, because we need to understand that part as well. Also the flow of the child scenario. So we are getting the, so let's go and check the execution history and let's see the latest message here. So let's see how it ran. So basically it receives data from the parent here. So what is the data it received? This is the data, right? The JSON data structure, JSON message that we design here, right? This is what we kind of pushed here, right? And it is received here, and then all these modules will be executed, okay? And then it will come back and it will send a success response back, okay? It will send a success response back to the parent, okay? That's how the flow happens, right? So now let's close it and let's try to do one more test. So you have something called fire and forget here, right? So let's try to test it out. So fire and forget is nothing but basically you call the child scenario and then you forget, right? You don't wait for a response, right? We are not expecting a response from the child scenario, right? Just think about a situation, right? You whenever your scenario encounters an error, you call an error handler scenario, right? That's it. You don't want to get a response back from the error handler scenario, right? We just want to make sure that the error is handled, right? So that can be a use case for this particular option, right? So let's try to test it out. So we just clicked on fire and forget, and then let's try to go to the child scenario. The child scenario, let's go there, and let's try to remove the output data structure. Basically, we don't need an output message to be sent back to the parent, right? Because it's just a fire and forget, right? We are just firing the child scenario and then we are forgetting it, right? So here's the output, the response to the parent. We don't need that anymore. Instead of that, it can be something else. We can add some modules, like let's say tools. Choose module, say tools. Can be some other modules that we can add here. Set multiple variables. Okay, so let's say var next step, right? So it can be, you can add your processing logic here and that will run, right? So let's try to test it out here. So let's click on OK there, save it. So what will happen is it will call the child scenario and then it will just forget. It will not wait for a response from the child. It will just move on to the next modules here. Okay, let's try to test it out. Let's try to run it. Okay, and let's see what happens. Yeah, immediately it went on to this. After calling it, it forgets it. It's not waiting for a response, and then immediately it moves on to the next modules here. Okay, yeah, perfect, right? So it doesn't give us a response here, and then it moves on to the next module. So let's also check the execution history in the child scenario, right? So let's go to the child scenario and let's see the execution history there. Let's see how it works. Okay, so then let's go to the child scenario. So basically this is the latest you know execution. Okay, you can see that we got the message from the parent here. Okay, test weapon, project ID, description. Okay, and then it executed these modules, right? Yeah, so that's how it worked here. So yeah, this is how basically the parent and the child scenario works using the chain modules functionality. I hope this was useful. Have a great day.